been a ton of great horror movies in the year 2025 and still plenty to come, but as it stands today, which films are the best of the best? In today's video, I'll give you my top 10 so you know which ones are worth watching. Welcome into the Nonstop Horror YouTube channel. My name is Cameron and it has been a great year for horror. 2025 had some big shoes to fill after the stellar year that we had as horror fans in 2024, but it's slowly living up to the expectations. Before we get to the list, I just want to shout all of you out. Nearly 300 new subscribers since the last video, and as I stated earlier in the year, my goal for this channel is to get it to 10,000 subs by Halloween, and I still totally think it's doable. So if you enjoy talking about horror movies all year long, make sure to slash that subscribe button and come along for the ride. Additionally, comment down below your top 5 horror movies of the year so far and see if our lists match up in any way. Enough yapping, let's get to the movies. I wanted to hate this movie, mostly because I'm an Until Dawn stan and everyone was talking about how much better Clown in a Cornfield was than Until Dawn, but holy hell, this one was fun. Based on the book of the same name, Clown in a Cornfield is about a young girl, Quinn, and her father who have just moved to a quiet town of Kettle Springs, hoping for a fresh start. Instead, she discovers a fractured community that has fallen on hard times after a nearby factory burned down. As the locals bicker amongst themselves and tensions boil over, a sinister, grinning figure emerges from the cornfields to cleanse the town of its burdens, one bloody victim at a time. And that figure's name is Friendo. This is a great teen slasher and will appeal to audiences of all ages. The kills are brutal and satisfying. There's a little bit of conspiracy thrown in there. Great mix of comedy. This movie gets so many things right as long as you're going into it expecting a little bit of a lighter tone. Like I said, it's a teen slasher, so it's like the modern day equivalent of a Scream or an I Know What You Did Last Summer for the current generation. The tone and style of the film feels very similar to Thanksgiving from 2023, just to give you a sense of what to expect. It's kind of crazy to be in this weird shift where now I'm starting to connect more with the parents in horror movies and see things from their perspective rather than the children. I guess it's just the phase of life I'm in. It feels very prominent these days. Anyway, Clown in a Cornfield is really fun. It's directed by Eli Craig, who made Tucker and Dale vs. Evil, so you know it's going to be good. It's on Shudder right now, actually, if you want to go check it out. This might be the most surprising or controversial film on my list so far, but Dangerous Animals is a banger. It's from Sean Byrne, who also directed The Loved Ones, and it's basically Creep mixed with Jaws, but where Jaws is like flipped on its head and sharks aren't the monster here. It's men, namely one man, Jai Courtney. Courtney plays a sinister, evil serial killer who fronts as a shark viewing tourist excursion business and ultimately takes these tourists and kills them. It gets much more sinister and dark than that, but saying much more would be spoiling it. His latest victim is stubborn tough gal Zephyr, who is visiting Australia trying to find herself, and she must fight for survival after being kidnapped by Jai Courtney's character. Jai Courtney definitely steals the show, and you can just tell that he had a blast playing this character. He's obsessed with sharks, even so far as reciting Baby Shark all the time, and you can't help but be drawn into his charm. Speaking of sharks, the movie does such a great job of underplaying how terrifying it would be to be fed to these sharks. By the time anybody gets to that point, you're like, please shark, save me from this fucking crazy ass Jai Courtney. But due to there being sharks in the movie, you can expect a bit of blood and gore along the journey. If you love a good final girl, you'll be eating with Dangerous Animals. Zephyr is such a great final girl, and save for one scene at the end, which took me out of the movie a little bit, she's written very well, and boy is she a fighter. Dangerous Animals is the best shark movie we've gotten in ages, and in it, director Sean Byrne explores the idea of depraved humanity and attempts to reclaim the children's song aptly named Baby Shark, and I think he does so successfully. I feel like everybody's kind of forgotten about this very fun slasher that came out back in February, which is a shame because I think it's still top 10, obviously. Hard Eyes is directed by Josh Rubin, who is no stranger to the horror genre. He directed Werewolves Within, Scare Me, and an episode of The Creep Tapes, and I personally think Hard Eyes might be my favorite of his work. Hard Eyes is the perfect combination of rom-com and slasher. Yes, I enjoy my fair share of rom-coms, but this is the perfect marriage between the two. There's a killer on the loose called the Hard Eyes Killer, named so because of the mask that the killer wears, and he only goes after couples. Our co-leads are co-workers who are mistaken for a couple and thus targeted by the Hard Eyes Killer. so they've got to spend Valentine's Day escaping death. There's really not much else to say about this film. It's a straightforward whodunit, doesn't take itself too seriously, and the kills are brutal. If you're a fan of early 2000s slashers, Hard Eyes is right up your alley, and although it takes place on Valentine's Day, I think it's great for viewing at any time of the year. Weapons was not very high on my radar this year, and I didn't really keep up with any of the marketing either, but it was such a fun surprise and amazing watch in the theater. Director Zach Cregger returns with his follow-up to 2022's Barbarian, which was also a nice surprise, further proving that maybe comedians make the best horror films. It's so easy to spoil the movie, so I'm going to try my best not to do so, but essentially all but one kid in the same class at the school mysteriously vanish on the same night at exactly the same time. The surrounding community is left questioning who or what is behind their disappearance. So we're following people within this community as they try to get to the bottom of this mystery, including the teacher of the class, played by Julia Garner, the remaining boy, a father of one of the missing children, played by Josh Brolin. Benedict Wong is in there. There's a certain scene in this film that was creepy as fuck and might end up being one of the best scenes of 2025 horror, but other than that, and maybe one or two other moments, Weapons wasn't that scary to me, which is fine. The third act did bring this movie down a bit for me. I was hoping for something different as far as the reason the kids were missing. However, the storytelling, the intrigue, the structure of the narrative was so enticing and had me gripped the entire time. There's a fun little cameo in this one that had me smiling from ear to ear once it happened. This movie is hilarious, but never ventures too far down the comedy path that it takes away from the seriousness of the situation. This one is still in theaters right now. If you can get to a theater to watch it, please do so. Sinners is going to be a lot of people's number one horror film of the year, deservedly so, but there are a few things that keep it here at number 6 for me, which we'll get to in a bit. In case you live under a rock, Sinners stars Michael B. Jordan, who plays twins trying to leave their troubled lives behind who return to their hometown to start again, only to discover an even greater evil awaiting them. The movie takes place in 1932, so it's also a bit of a period piece, and it really uses the history of Southern blues as the backbone of its story and themes. It's genre blending, taking a lot of inspiration from the film From Dusk Till Dawn. It's basically a gothic vampire tale told in one of the most unique settings that I've ever seen. The music and score of this movie will be talked about for years and years, with composer Ludwig Göransson really bringing his all to the film. Sinners probably has the best well-rounded cast of any horror movie this year, not a bad performance to speak of in my opinion. So what are my drawbacks keeping it at number 6 on this list? This is kind of the same problem I had with Nosferatu, where I went to see it in the theater at like 9 or 10 at night and I was just super tired. I can guarantee that after a rewatch later in the year, this will move up a couple of notches on my list, but it still being this high on my list despite the drowsiness is a testament to the quality of the film. The technicality and the precision and the passion behind this film is clearly evident in every single frame. Ryan Coogler really cemented himself as one of the best filmmakers of our time, and I'm stoked to see what else he does for the horror genre. At number 5, we've got Final Destination Bloodlines. Now, like I'm sure many of you were, I was worried when they announced Bloodlines because I love the Final Destination franchise, and I didn't want it to get diminished by shitty sequels and cash grabs. I'm going to spoil Final Destination 5 really quick, so in case you haven't seen this 14-year-old movie, earmuffs. I loved that the ending of 5 looped around to the plane crash from the first movie, and I had really wanted to see how they continued that moving forward in the franchise. But don't go into this expecting that type of movie though. They did a really good job of creating a whole different bubble for Bloodlines to live in without relying on the previous films in the franchise to be good. It lives on its own, quite frankly. Plagued by a recurring violent nightmare, a college student returns home to find the one person who can break the cycle and save her family from the horrific fate that inevitably awaits them. So we've got a new premonition, arguably the best premonition sequence in the franchise, and we're really just centered around the members of one family who are in danger in this one, which kind of raises the stakes a bit compared to previous films in the franchise. The deaths are gnarly and disturbing, on par with the best of the best in the franchise, and the movie is funny as well, a great ratio of funny dialogue and moments to offset the crazy deaths. The cast could have been switched up a little bit, like maybe get one big name in there, although 4 and 5 didn't have any big names, I don't think, so maybe that's just a moot point. I did love the Tony Todd appearance in the film, R.I.P., and Richard Hartman was probably my favorite of the main cast. As a fan of the Final Destination franchise from the very beginning, Bloodlines had me on the edge of my seat and ultimately left me satisfied, solidifying its spot as the 5th best horror movie of the year so far. Probably one of the most anticipated horror films of the year, 28 years later continues the beloved franchise with its 2025 entry starring Jodie Comer, Aaron Taylor Johnson, Ralph Fiennes, and more. We've got the same team behind the movie as well, with Danny Boyle directing and Alex Garland writing, so hopes are very high here. So with so much hype and a backlog of 2 of the best movies in horror, 28 Years Later had a lot to live up to, and I think it met those expectations beautifully. A group of survivors of the Rage virus live on a small island, and when one of the group leaves the island on a mission into the mainland, he discovers secrets, wonders, and horrors that have mutated not only the infected, but other survivors as well. The trailer for this film will give you the chills, and it doesn't give away a whole lot of the movie either. Trailer editors really took note this year of complaints in recent years about trailers giving away too much of the movie. But on that same note, some people are complaining that the tone of the trailer doesn't match the tone of the movie, which I can kind of understand, but I still think it's a nice packaged delivery of the film overall. 28 Years Later is an action-packed zombie flick with a little coming of age sprinkled in there as well. I loved the filmmaking techniques used in this film, especially the editing technique used during like the first wave of them taking out zombies. You'll know it when you see it. They also did a good job of making me, as an audience member, interjecting myself into some of these situations and saying to myself, I'd be fucked. I really dig wacky, off-the-wall interjections into a horror plot, and that isn't any different here with 28 Years Later. I loved the ending of this film. People will be talking about the ending. It's very divisive, but it kind of has to do with how they leave it open for the second movie, which I think we're getting next year, if I'm not mistaken. It's called Bone Temple. This movie had me wanting more, so I can't wait to see what they do with the trilogy. Just maybe a little less zombie dong in the sequels, please. This next film is an underrated gem from this year, and you should jump on the bandwagon before it blows up. At number 3, we have Marshmallow, and it brings us the ever-familiar setting of a summer camp slasher, with a bit of a unique take on the genre. At a secluded summer camp, timid and introverted 12-year-old Morgan is thrust into a waking nightmare when a once-fabled campfire tale becomes real. As a mysterious figure descends upon the camp, Morgan and his newfound friends must embark on a treacherous journey and uncover a sinister reality buried beneath the surface. So it's about this group of kids at the summer camp who are being stalked by this mysterious figure, and they've got to figure out who it is, what it is, how to defeat it, the good old slasher lore background, essentially. Marshmallow isn't super scary, but it is clever, it subverts your expectations, and it keeps the heart of summer camp slashers beating. It's tame enough to be called a gateway horror film, but has enough elements to satisfy even veteran horror fans. Now, I want to give a shout out to Horror Weekly. I had no idea this movie existed until I heard about the host talk about this one. It's one of those movies where it deserves at least one rewatch because the experience is drastically different during that rewatch. The Ugly Stepsister is one of the biggest surprises of the year. This masterpiece of a horror film can be watched on Shudder right now. It debuted at Sundance, I believe, and I think there was a small theatrical release, but I don't recall if it was nationwide. I'm not sure. I might just not have been super aware of the film at the time, but I would have loved to see this in the theater. Unfortunately, I didn't get to. The Ugly Stepsister retells a story as old as time, the old motif of Cinderella, but told from the stepsister's point of view. As in the classic tale, there is a prince who is in need of a wife, and he plans a ball for all of his suitors to attend so he can pick the fairest of them all. Our main character, Elvira, battles to compete with her incredibly beautiful stepsister, and she will go to any length to catch the prince's eye. Really, it's her mother who will go to any length, which is a big part of the movie. Body horror lovers rejoice. This movie has its body horror moments that will make you wince and cringe. It's also labeled as a black comedy, so expect some cheeky humor and smiles throughout as well. It's shot beautifully, oozing with that old Victorian style and vibe. This is also the directorial debut from Amelia Blickfield, I think is her last name, which is also impressive. So, side note really quick, there is a great interview that James and Chelsea from Dead Meat hosted with the director. You should definitely go check that out. It's a wonderful interview and gives you a lot of insight into the film. So if you go and watch the trailer for this film, it has the substance written all over it. They were definitely trying to draw on that same audience who loved The Substance. And while the underlying themes of the two movies overlap, I wouldn't tell someone, hey, if you like The Substance, go watch The Ugly Stepsister. And the director says the same thing herself in that interview, noting that her movie is not as stuffed with body horror stuff as The Substance is. I believe there's still enough disconnect in the plot and tone of the movies to keep them completely separate. But definitely worth a watch. Like I said, this is one of the biggest surprises this year. Not very well talked about. It is a Norwegian film, so you'll have to watch with subtitles, but totally worth it. Go check it out on Shudder. Now, before we get to my number one horror movie of the year so far, I just wanted to shout out a couple of honorable mentions. There have been so many great horror movies this year. I wanted to narrow down the list to 10, but these other horror movies are definitely worth watching and worth mentioning. One, I'll give a shout out to Presence, which is the kind of ghost story, a haunted house story told from the perspective of the ghost, which is really awesome. You should go check that out. It Feeds is one that no one's really talking about, which is available on Hulu, so is Presence. The Damned, if you like the TV show The Terror, The Damned is right up your alley. Dead Mail, if you love like 80s vibes, 80s synth music, it definitely oozes the 80s all around it. It's really awesome. Locked is a great movie featuring Bill Skarsgård and Anthony Hopkins, where it's basically a single location movie where Bill Skarsgård is locked in a car the entire time, most of the time. Until Dawn, like I said, I'm an Until Dawn stan, and I loved the movie. I think it got way more hate than it needed to. Still a fun watch. Let's just say it's a fun watch. And a lot of callbacks to the game as well. And then lastly, Companion. Companion almost made it onto my top 10. It was really a toss-up between that and Clown in a Cornfield. But it's great sci-fi horror. If you haven't seen Companion, you should definitely go watch it. Easy to spoil that one as well. So if you haven't seen a trailer or anything about Companion, go watch it. Now, without further ado, my favorite horror movie of the year so far. Holy hell, Bring Her Back blew me away. I was late to the game on this one as I really wanted to watch it with my wife because I could just tell that it was going to be a banger, but I finally watched it and so glad I did. Bring Her Back is an Australian horror movie brought to us by the same dudes who directed Talk to Me, another fantastic horror movie released in 2022. Now, Talk to Me is a great movie, don't get me wrong. Bring Her Back is better. Let's just start there. It's just so much better. It's about two step-siblings who are orphaned and taken in by a new foster mother who is the biggest piece of shit I've seen in a horror movie in quite a while, like the video If You Agree. And they're placed into this home, there's another sibling, and there's some sort of twisted ritual happening, and it's them dealing with that. The descriptions on IMDb and Letterboxd each kind of give too much information, so I'm just giving you as much information as I personally had going into this one. The trailers that I watched did not give away a whole lot of the story, and the vibe and tone that I personally projected in my head were nothing like what the movie ended up being, and that's a very good thing. The acting in this one is on point from everybody involved, and it may just be recency bias on my end, but I don't have any big issues with this film right now. Bring Her Back is heavy, it's bleak, it's depressing, and kudos to these filmmakers for not breaking the tension with tongue-in-cheek humor or wacky scenes and whatnot. This is just straight horror right here. Bring Her Back has some of the best gore this year, some of the most disturbing scenes, and yeah, it's one that you won't soon forget. I say that kind of a lot about good movies, but yeah, this one's just going to stand the test of time, I can totally tell. And the way the story is fleshed out and resolved at the end was just a thing of beauty. I was on the verge of tears. This is going to be hard to beat as #1 horror film this year, but I will not stop searching for a better one. So there it is, the 10 best horror movies of 2025 so far. What did you think of the list? Any surprises? Did our lists match in any way? I can't wait to hear from you all, and no matter what your favorites are, there's a bit of horror for everybody this year. Let's see what the rest of the year brings us. Lastly, thanks to everyone who signed up for the brand new newsletter where I'll be giving you weekly horror movie recommendations right in your inbox, along with lots of other goodies. You can always sign up for that for free with the link in the description. I'll see you in the next video, and remember to embrace the fear all year long.